Ever since I posted my setup, you guys have not been stopping to requesting a cable management video, so this has become the most requested video for sure on the channel. But I didn't want to half-ass this video. I wanted to give you exactly the steps that I take and why I take those steps specifically. So since I just finished putting together my friend's setup, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my stories and you've been seeing the reels that I've been posting, and this will actually become a new series on the channel, a setup makeover series. So this will officially be episode 2, but we're going to talk more about this later. Since I was already building this setup anyways, I thought why not just give you the entire full scope of my cable management process. But don't worry, because these are the very same principles that I use on my setup. The only difference on this specific setup is the dock is a little bit different and there was no subwoofer, so it's a little bit less cables, but the labor is still intensive and the process is exactly the same. So if you're looking for a cable management guide to help you manage or conceal your cable mass without cutting holes or building a back panel, but most importantly where you would place each item and where, then this is for you. And even though this might not work for everybody, just keep around and keep an eye open. You might see something that you might want to apply to your space. By the way, if you're new here, my name is caimarsalizi. This is where I share my love for setups and tech. So if you're new here, consider subscribing, and if you think this video is dope, give it a thumbs up. So to build this will cost you right around $150, but this is a system that will grow with you and you don't necessarily need to buy all the items listed here, so feel free to be selective and pick only what suits you. And all these links I picked up at Amazon, and I'm gonna have the links in the description below, so feel free to go check them out. And just a quick disclaimer, those are affiliate links, so by you using them I will be getting a kickback at no additional cost to you, but I hope this guide serves you. Okay, so what are we using? First, we're using these double-sided Velcro strips. These things are very strong. They will hold the brick very well and they have a decent level of heat resistance, and when you're getting them, make sure you're going with the Velcro brand. I found that it's the strongest and the most reliable. Next, I use these Velcro ties. These things are so incredibly useful. I tie in mostly all my cables with this because zip ties are too permanent. These things I can easily untie them, add or remove any cables, and this pack comes with like maybe 100 150, so you're not gonna be running out of these guys anytime soon. Next are these, I don't know what I call these, loops or just tie strips with some double-sided sticky tape. This is for example for cables that not only I need them tightly together, I also need them like attached to the desk or attached to somewhere. And again, these are modular because I can always add or remove cable. Next, I got these little cable clips that come in very handy for like single or just for example like dual cable. You don't want to have too many cables in there, but you still want to keep it a very low profile. This is what I use them for. They are pretty tough as well, so they should hold in almost any surface. This one is not a must. In my case, I have an iPad and people often ask, where did you get that cable from? Well, it's this type of cable. It's a right angle cable for my iPad specifically because I don't want my cable to loop around. I simply want it to exit the device and shoot down so I can conceal it the best. If you have a similar situation or a monitor, I would suggest getting right angle cables as much as you can so you can avoid unnecessary loops or just cables going all over the place. Now, these power stations are what I consider to be my lifesavers. When I was putting my setup together, that's what I bit my head around on. How do I route all these cables to my dock? And it was really simple. I just didn't see it or heard it before, but that's what I found. And I use one specifically for my USB-A devices, one for my USB-C devices. So you don't have to have these guys, but it removes a lot of the guesswork of which cables need to go where and how many bricks you actually need on your surge protector. So for me, these things were clutch and they are worth the money. And specifically for the USB-C one, I made sure it has different power wattages to supply the dock, the iPad, and for any other device like iPhones and watch charge. If you've been an OG to the channel, you probably heard me talk about this before, and these are the server racks. I found this thing on Ryan Cow's channel and it's been a lifesaver ever since. By the time I'm recording this video, I just found out that they are sold in black as well, but I got them in gray. So before I installed it, I actually gave it a coat of spray paint. Just because my setup is overall black and I like to conceal things as much as possible, you don't have to, but it's an extra step that I was willing to take. And why I like these guys over, for example, a regular raceway is because cables can come in and out of this from any point and anywhere on the desk. Raceways, typically they need to go from one end to the other. Not these guys. The cables can travel across it or even be concealed inside of this. So this is where I store any excess cables and where my cables go to the surge protector or to the power station. If you don't get anything else from this video, at least get this one thing. This is an absolute must. For the surge protector, I went with this 22 outlet power strip, and it actually also has additional 6 USB-C ports, so that's cool. But what I wanted to make sure, one, is that the cord had at least 6 feet. So also have plenty of room to reach any outlet, and it takes mounting screws on the bottom. And yes, you could go with the other ones that actually, you know, twist and angle a little bit, but I like to keep consistent with this one. Even though sometimes the cables do stick out a little bit, I don't mind because I feel it actually conceals power bricks better. So if you want to improve my system, this is one of the areas that you can focus on. It's just getting those power strips that actually twist on the ends. For example, for those cables that show on the front side, to me those are not a huge deal as of now, but it's a route that you could take. Okay, the first decision you want to make is your desk placement. Positioning your desk next to a wall plug is very important. So if you don't have a wall plug close to you, it's fine. Just be mindful that that is where your cable is going to go from the desk to the wall plug. And with that in my mind, I also know that when I use my cable spine, this is where my cable spine will go from the desk to the wall. So if I need to angle my cable spine so it's not too twisted, I started thinking about those things right now. But if the plug is not too far away, I like the plug to be somewhere within the space of the desk. Okay, I get it. You want to do cable management, so you want to strip your entire desk. You just want to start from scratch. You can do that, but I would advise for you to plug everything. You want to plug and lay out everything exactly how you're going to use it, because if you don't have a layout that you want to lock on, there's no point cable managing that. Otherwise, you're going to have to move devices anyway. So my first advice to you is plug in everything and place it to where exactly you want everything to be. And this will give you also an idea if you need longer cables or longer cords, for example, for speakers, for charging. For example, in my setup, I use 4 additional 10-foot audio cables that travel from my audio interface to my subwoofer, from the subwoofer to the speakers, from the speakers back to my desk. It's a lot of travel distance, so this step will give you a better vision in terms of like cable length. Okay, to begin managing everything, the very first thing I install is the server rack. I like to conceal these near the center support column so I can conceal cables coming from any direction. And this is especially if you have like a sit-stand desk. You already have that beam going across anyways, why not use it to your advantage? But you don't want to install that flash to the column. You want to give it a little bit of space so you have enough room to pass cables through from one end to the other. Here's a pro tip. If you're pre-drilling for your screws so you don't drill through your desk, just add a piece of tape to your drill bit and you know exactly how much you need to drill every time. So with that, I install all my power supply. That means this is when the surge protector goes up. I place it as close to the center as possible, as long as the cord again has enough give to reach the wall on a sitting position and on a standing position if you have a sit stand desk. And I just leave a little bit of space between this and the server rack. Since these things have screws on the bottom, I just use some tape to map them out and then I pre-drill. And once I install the screws so this thing doesn't come off the base, I add a counter screw. This screw is a stopper basically. Like this, I know that my surge protector is secure and no matter what I plug into this, it's not gonna come down. For the USB-C and USB-A power stations, I add this Velcro strip because it's perfect for these guys, and I add them as close as possible to my monitor. Why? Because this is my pass-through area. This is where my cables are coming from the monitor, and some of these cables coming from the monitor, they're gonna need this power. So I don't want this super far away because these cables don't have a lot of length. So I keep it close as possible to the monitor. And this is when you need to choose what I call a pass-through area. This is where all bulk of cables will circulate from the monitor to the dock and to the bottom of the desk. And to me, the best place to have this is right behind the monitor arm. And if your monitor arm has cable concealment, that's great. So use it to your advantage. Next, I separate my devices into 4 categories. 1, they need to be connected to the dock or PC. For example, webcam, speakers, mouse, things like that. 2, they only need power, but they are USB-C. 3, they only need power, but they are USB-A. And 4, they plug straight into power. And this is where I begin to route all my cables. I typically start from the back of the monitor. So I begin to tie these guys using these Velcro ties and clips as necessary, as tightly as possible to the monitor arm and passing through it behind the monitor arm so I can conceal them the most as possible. And in this setup, since I only have a 1 cable connection going to the MacBook Pro, I make sure that I have enough slack for that, but everything else is being tied down. For speakers, I use these clips because they are very useful to add and remove cables, and the sticky pads is fairly strong, and plus they are great for single cables. And my goal with these are to go to the back of the desk and route them from the bottom, passing through the server rack and store any excess cables inside the server rack. To look these cables a little bit more concealed, I throw in this sleeve. I know I didn't mention on the item, but this is something really dope to have as well. And so it doesn't look all loose and flimsy on the ends, just Velcro tie those to give it a cleaner look. So once the cables are under the desk, my goal is to create a bundle and a path to the server rack. And this is where I will store any excess cables. Or USB-C cables will leave from a specific point, and USB-A cables will leave from a dedicated point as well. And for the guys that just plug in straight to the surge protector, just tuck them really nice and tight and loop them and plug them straight to the surge protector. I tend to keep any other cable tucked in with these clips or these loops depending on how many cables are passing through, and these just makes things a bit more modular because it's easy to unclip, remove, or add cables. It's not so permanent as a zip tie. Zip ties are good, but they're just too permanent for me. If I need to add something or remove, it's gonna become very annoying very fast, at least for me, because I'm always adding and removing devices here and there. So for huge breaks, things that are just heavy or things that have a lot of things plugged up that you're for sure you want to make sure these guys are secure, I add the same Velcro ties, but what I do is I screw them down to the underside of the desk so that they are not gonna go anywhere and they're still pretty secure, and plus they're still removable. So for things that are heavy that you want a little bit more security, use this tactic. And lastly is the only one cable going to the wall, which is from your surge protector. So for this, I conceal using this spine, this cable spine thing. And the cool thing about it, it has like 4 different channels and it can hold actually a lot of cables. This is great for sit stand desk because not only conceals the cables very well, but it gives you enough give in case you want to raise and lower the desk. And this is my cable management process. On all setups that I've done so far, I use the exact same process. If you want to see the full desk setup makeover, by the time you watch this video, it could be available, it could not, but just stick around. It is coming on my desk setup makeover series. Right now, I'm not funding those. As of now, I'm working with brands, and in this case, my friend also had a budget. So if you still just want to get ideas, it'll be great for you to just drop in and check out how we do that. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, drop them below. And if this was actually dope, give your boy a subscribe. See you guys on the next one.